Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno's Best Comics of the Week, and this is a show where I review all the comics I've read this week in one show. We go least favorite to best pick of the week and everything in between. And I also have some Kickstarters going on right now. I have two Kickstarters, The Witches of Oz, which is a love story between Glinda and the Wicked Witch, so go check that one out. And we also have a detective story about these childhood detectives who learn what it means to grow up with their bloodiest case yet, so go check out both those Kickstarters. Also, we do the viewers pick of the week, so in the comments below, let me know your pick of the week for a chance to be featured on the episode. But let's jump in. I had 10 comics this week, so pretty average size haul. Number 10 for me is The Infernals, issue 3. This is a book that I really like the concept for. I think it's interesting to see the children of the devil have this kind of contemporary story as he dies, right? So I find that interesting. But I really don't like demonic stories. I don't know why. They just tend not to interest me very much. Even when it comes to like my horror movies, I don't like The Omen or The Exorcist. It's just not my genre. So that kind of is the same thing bleeding here, where it's just like, I enjoy the story, and I think if you enjoy this genre, you'll really like this book. But as someone who doesn't really enjoy the genre, it's harder for me to get into. So I think this will be the last issue for me on this one. But, you know, I do think it's a solid series. And honestly, I enjoyed my books overall this week. But giving that 2 stars, and that is number 10. All right, moving on to number 9, which is PineMarac issue 4. And this issue, we definitely get to dive a little bit deeper into this plot, and we get to see what the villains are up to. But what I like the most is the interaction between the couple. I enjoy seeing their past, just seeing them interact. And by the end of the issue, you get to see the husband get shot. And you're like, what's going on? And that was definitely the most exciting part of the issue, because I do think it does suffer because the plot, for me personally, is not as interesting as the characters are, and there's certain aspects that I wish they were exploring, like the whole sister story that they've dropped in that first issue, and ever since then hasn't really picked up on. And I don't know if this is ongoing or not, so I'm like, where's the sister? What's going on with that? Are they connected to these villains? Possibly, but I want to see more from her, because I think she was the most interesting thread when it comes to the main plot. Also, the visuals are very cartoony for, honestly, a darker story, in my opinion. So giving this 3 stars, and that is number 9. And moving on to number 8, which is Green Arrow issue 11. This issue is a lot of exposition, so if you know and like Green Arrow, the whole middle chunk is about Malcolm Merlyn, a character that was very well known on Arrow, a character that's very well known in the comics, and then they do this whole almost 10 pages of explaining who is Malcolm Merlyn, and it felt very confusing to me, because I feel like this book has already been very nostalgic, very much geared towards people that are hardcore Green Arrow fans, so for me, that kind of lost momentum. But then in the end, you get to see Malcolm and Green Arrow fighting. He turns the tides with the Green Arrow family fighting Green Arrow. I'm like, okay, this is a promising ending for the next issue, but I thought this one was a bit slower. So giving this 3 stars, and that's number 8. Moving on to number 7, which is The Mighty Morphin Power Rangers issue 119. I can't believe the series is ending. I'm kind of blown away by that. I hope it's not the official end of the Power Rangers, but if it is, I feel like I've had a good ride with it. And you know, this issue continues to do what it does best. It has some good character moments. There's a lot of characters to balance though, and I think that's always been the hardship of a team book in general. Is like, okay, how do you have a focal point? And this issue doesn't quite have that. But Mythos is where it kind of grows and where everything feels a bit more attached. You get some exploration with some different suits and what the Morphin grid can do, what's good, what's evil, especially when it comes to the power of the White Ranger. So I enjoyed that aspect. Good art, solid book. I just feel like the latest issue I enjoyed the most was something like when Lord Draken got killed from Kimberly, because I'm like, oh man, they were focusing on that one thing, and it made for a big moment in the end. This, I think it's a little spread out, so giving that 3 stars, and that is number 7. Moving on to number 6, a book I was really looking forward to, and that's Dick Tracy issue 1. If you are interested in pulp and noir and detective stories, this is for you, and for me, because I genuinely do like that genre. And I've never read Dick Tracy, so that was kind of a fun ride of like, okay, I don't know who this character is, but I perfectly understood what was going on. And you felt like this old school storytelling, almost again more comic strip storytelling here, but with a grittiness, not grittiest, with a grittiness that really that really works for this book. And I love the coloring in particular, because there is this kind of modern vibe, but it still feels timeless. And I like the story, because that feels very modern. It's very much about gun violence here. And the characters are introduced in an interesting way. You get to learn what type of detective Dick Tracy is. There's this girl who, anytime you see a girl that it's sticking around with the detective, is she the femme fatale? Is she not? What's her role? So I think there's definitely a lot of interesting tidbits here to get me interested in an issue too. So I gave this 3.5 stars, and that is number 6. Moving on to number 5, which is Jackpot and Black Cat, issue 2. I really like Black Cat and MJ's relationship with each other, and that's something that really pulls the book through. There are times where the scripting feels a little generic, especially when Paul's involved, and even the plot in general I think could be a little stronger, but the chemistry between Black Cat and MJ really works here, and there is solid art and a really good cliffhanger where we get to see Black Cat's girlfriend is maybe not the civilian you thought she was, and maybe part of this bigger story with the villain, which I really liked. I'm like, okay, this is interesting to me even more towards the plot now. So overall, I'm giving that 3.5 stars, and that is number 5. Moving on to number 4, a book that's been really pleasantly surprising me, and that's Primer issue 2. This was originally released as a graphic novel. With this issue, honestly, it's so interesting because every issue ends on a cliffhanger still somehow. It almost feels like it was written for single issues. And the artwork is just so clean, and it is very all ages. I feel like as an adult, I'm enjoying it, but I can see why a kid would really enjoy this, because it's also introducing a whole new flavor, a whole new character that you could jump into her origin story. And again, there's a lot of cool twists and turns with the mom's connection to these powers and paint technology, and our main character, again, exploring her superheroism, all while you have the cliffhanger ending of the bio dad maybe returning. So I had a good time with this one. I think it's a well-balanced book that achieves what it's going for as an all-ages book. So that's number 4 for me. Moving on to number 3, which is the Amazing Spider-Man issue 48. This issue does focus a little bit more on Ben, who is a character I don't really love in the modern age right now. It's not really a story I'm invested in. These past issues have been stronger than what we've been getting, and I liked Betty a lot here. And I liked the connection to previous arcs with the Queen Goblin, with even the previous runs with the idea of the sins of the Green Goblin and where those go. I enjoyed that. I don't think this issue is as strong as the last issue. I think that was a little bit more balanced, but I really like Betty here. I enjoy just seeing the supporting characters play a bigger role in the series. I thought the artwork was solid enough. I don't know if it was the strongest we've seen from the series, but it works for, honestly, something I think is a bit of a filler arc to get to issue 50. So overall, giving that 3.5 stars, and that is number 3. And we'll talk about the topic of Ultimate Spider-Man in a bit. But let's move on to number 2, which is Feral issue 2. I miss stray dogs, and this book is making me wonder why I did, because I've been enjoying this. It's a well-paced book where we get to see a zombie apocalypse, but obviously with the idea of rabies, and we get to see the characters try to figure out what's going on, kind of like a Walking Dead. It's like, okay, now what is this? How do I play in this world? And there's some shocking moments, deaths for sure, and then there's the idea that one of the cats has rabies, most likely. We saw that in the first issue, so that's also lingering in your head. It's like, okay, when are they going to convert into the zombies? So it just plays with the genre really well, with obviously a very outside the box concept with having cats involved. So I've been enjoying it. It's everything everyone's been saying, and why Stray Dogs is amazing is also the reason why Feral's amazing, by doing something different and still thinking outside the box of the original series, which I really applaud as well. So giving that 4 stars, and that is number 2. Moving on to number 1 and our topic for the video. So Ultimate Spider-Man issue 4. Is it not better than Amazing Spider-Man, but is it more successful? Is this the book that is more the flagship title? 5 years ago, we probably would have had a better answer of like, well, look at the sales of Amazing Spider-Man, look at the sales of Ultimate. We don't know the sales. You could probably look at what's being pulled on like League of Comic Geeks and be like, oh, I think this is the sales. Or you go to your comic book store and be like, I think this is what's being picked up. But I think what's interesting about Ultimate Spider-Man and why I personally get more excited for it is the idea I don't know what's going to happen next. And obviously because it's an alternate universe and it's a start of a new universe in these characters, so that's A. But then B, it's the idea that they could do anything, right? With Amazing Spider-Man, you're like, I know they can't do this, they can't do that. And if they do this, it's probably going to go back. And I think that's what does take out the enjoyment of the flagship title right now of Amazing Spider-Man. Even though I think this arc and last arc has been a little bit stronger and I've been enjoying it more, there's still these reservations of, well, they can't do that. How long can they do that for? There's this idea of not being able to reinvent itself like Ultimate Spider-Man has been able to do, and honestly, obviously give you stories that a lot of people have been waiting for. So for me, I do think Ultimate Spider-Man's been more successful in that way, and I do think it's a book that people are more excited to read. And in this issue in particular, what I liked about it is it kind of is a slow burn, right? But in all the right ways. This issue really is just a conversation between Harry, Gwen, MJ, and Peter, and obviously there's this idea that MJ doesn't know that Peter is Spider-Man, and Peter and Harry have this weird relationship where they both are these heroes, all while the world is starting to understand what is a hero, what's a villain, all while Uncle Ben and J. Jonah is making this newspaper of, okay, what's the truth, what's not the truth, and Gwen is this dark horse because she's playing almost a villainous role where even MJ's like, I don't know if I trust her. You could tell she has a very control of the room. She's very much playing the Norman Osborn role in a lot of ways. So it's like, oh, what's going to happen to Gwen? And that's what brings so much excitement for this book, is that it doesn't show your hand, right? It's slowly building up towards something. And I wish more comics, especially superhero books, were like that, where it doesn't just hammer you over the head. It's like, look, Gwen is this person, or Harry is this person. It's like, nah, it's not about the results. It's about the journey. It's about seeing how you kind of pull these threads with these characters. And that's what I enjoyed about this issue as well. Even with the guest artists, I think the colorist did a really good job at making it feel very consistent. So I'm enjoying the book. I'm giving that 4 stars. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno. Let me know in the comments below what your pick of the week was. Last week's pick of the week was Tom King's indie book, Helen, issue 2, I believe we're up to. So you could check out some comments over there. And also go check out my 2 Kickstarters, Deven Taylor and Witches of Oz, and here are some QR codes for that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.